Hi everyone, this is Helmi from ASC, and today's topic is about the decline of visual astronomy and the rise of astrophotography. I don't know if this is happening everywhere in the world. It's definitely happening where I live. Most of my customers are interested in getting into astrophotography in one way or another. I see it in all the local and regional WhatsApp groups which I'm a member of. I see it on social media, and I'm rather sad about the decline of visual astronomy. So this video is just my thoughts and opinions about this topic. Keep watching after the intro for more. Okay, so this is a topic that's very close to my heart. I love astronomy. I love all aspects of astronomy. I do visual astronomy, I do astrophotography. Sometimes I like reading about science and astronomy. I like observing comets. I do all kinds of astronomy. I don't claim to be an expert. I don't claim to be technically more competent than anybody else, but I've been in this hobby for a while. I've been in this hobby since I believe 2007 or 2006. So I believe I've earned my right to rant a bit about what's going on. Social media has driven everybody to be fascinated with astrophotography. Everybody goes onto Instagram and they see these beautiful photos with excessive saturation and just levels of detail which are sometimes, I would go as far as saying, unrealistic. Some of them are really good photos. Some of them are actually quite accurate. Some of them are artistic interpretations of what people see. But social media has made everybody want to become an astrophotographer. Now, astrophotography is a great hobby. Nothing wrong with that. The problem is this is affecting expectations of customers about astronomy as a whole. Now, nobody wants to do visual astronomy. People have forgotten the joy of visual astronomy. Visual astronomy can be very relaxing, especially if you live in the city and you go out there camping, for example, be one with nature. It's quiet. If you're using a manual telescope like our 16-inch Dob over here, not much machinery around you, no noises, it's just you and nature, and you're admiring the beauty of space. Viewing things through the eyepiece is it's a different experience. What got me hooked in astronomy was seeing Saturn for the first time it was a cheap plasticky Meade refractor. It was a beautiful experience. Seeing Saturn there, it looks sort of three-dimensional. It looks like a jewel floating in the sky. That had an impact on me that still has an impact on me till today. It's a wonderful experience seeing a planet for the first time in a telescope visually. Seeing it in a photo, not so much. It looks flat. There's no sense of achievement. You know, when you look through a telescope and you peek into the eyepiece and you find the target, there's a sense of achievement there. You feel like you've done something. There's the challenge to oneself about being able to see faint detail. There's the learning about the night sky. All these are not really there in astrophotography. In astrophotography, most of the time you will set up your mount and fire up your mobile phone, select a target, it will go there, and if you're lucky enough to have autofocus, after plate solving it will just autofocus, you tell it how many photos you want, and the rest of it is pursued at the computer when you're image processing. It's just not the same experience. I have nothing wrong against astrophotography. I own a visual telescope and I own an astrophotography setup, and I do both. Sometimes I do both simultaneously. I would go out there and set up my Sharpstar 130mm f2.8 Newtonian, and I would have that going and taking photos, and I'll be looking through the Dob and appreciating the beauty of the night sky. Sometimes I don't want something complicated. I would just take out a small visual telescope and again just try and appreciate the natural beauty of the night sky. I sometimes just roam around, push the telescope, see what I can find. Sometimes I go fully manual. I remember a while back I just got a pair of binoculars. It was a very clear night, beautiful dark sky, and I just started roaming around the Milky Way, and after years of using GoTo, it was fascinating to manually discover all those beautiful objects, finding M16 and M17 and trying to find the Trifid Nebula, which is very difficult to see in binoculars, finding some globular clusters, and it's just a different experience. I also remember my days of exploration when I first got my telescope. It was a manual telescope, and in the middle of town I set it up in my parents' rooftop. I just roam around the sky. I remember accidentally discovering the Beehive cluster, the Coat Hanger cluster. These are beautiful views. First time I saw the Andromeda Galaxy, I was dancing with joy on the rooftop. I know that sounds silly, but it brought me lots of pleasure. There was lots of excitement involved. When we go out as a group and we visually observe through the 16-inch Dob, we're all very excited and we keep pointing out details we can see to each other, and again, that's a beautiful experience. When it comes to astrophotography, that's also a nice experience. I love gadgets. I'm an electronics guy. I've got all kinds of gadgets. Anything that's got electronics in it excites me. So of course astrophotography will appeal to me. I enjoy that too. It's a beautiful hobby in its own right, but it's also very difficult for the beginner. Now, one of the issues I have with astrophotography is I believe the rise of astrophotography is pushing away beginners, and it's actually killing the hobby very slowly. Let me explain. A beginner comes in to my shop and tells me he knows nothing about astronomy. He's seen wonderful photos on Instagram and he wants to get into astrophotography. So he tells me, I want to photograph this and I want to photograph that and I want to photograph this. So you've got, either you sell him a C-Star, which is a nice telescope, amazing feat of technology, and I think this will win a lot of people back in astronomy, but will never give him the level of quality he expects in astrophotography, and will not give him the same joy as what you get with visual astronomy. Or I'll tell him, okay, you need to spend around 1,000 Omani Riyals, so that will be around $2,500 to get a decent astrophotography entry-level setup that's very comprehensive and not missing much stuff. You could go cheaper. Maybe you get a sky tracker, sort of like a sky hunter, and use your own DSLR, and you could get started for half that much money. And either the price shocks them and they believe they can't get good results unless they spend a lot of money, so they leave, or they insist on going into astrophotography and buy an instrument that's very cheap and not capable of giving the performance needed for astrophotography, and then they're disappointed when they can't get the photos. Or they can afford all that equipment and maybe even more. Sometimes I get customers who on their first purchase they spend 3,000 riyals, what, that's maybe $7,500, buy all sorts of stuff. 8 months later they quit the hobby. They said this is too frustrating, there's just too much involved, the learning curve is too steep. Not everybody quits. I have a lot of people who've gotten into the hobby and they keep coming back and they buy more and more equipment and they love astrophotography and they keep publishing photos. But the truth is, astrophotography is hard. It's not an easy hobby. You have to perfect your polar alignment. You have to perfect your focus. You need to be able to get good composition. You need to figure out exposure times. You need to figure out auto-guiding, or maybe get a mount which doesn't need auto-guiding. Once you download the photos, you need to figure out calibration frames. There's the processing. Astrophotography is just a very hard hobby. It's not for everybody. It's a wonderful hobby, but it's just not for everybody. We need to bring back visual astronomy. Even astrophotographers, what are you doing when you're waiting for your exposures? I mean, sometimes I go out alone and I'd be camping out there for a week. If I didn't have a visual setup to go with my astrophotography setup, I'd be quite bored at night. In the daytime, I keep myself busy with image processing. I realized that's not such a great idea because I drained the batteries on my camper and then next night I have no batteries. But at least in the daytime you could read a book, you could go hiking, you could do something else. At night, especially when you're alone and you don't have company, it's nice to just go out there, observe through a visual telescope and just admire the beauty of nature. When you're a group, there's that infectious group enthusiasm. You see something, somebody else gets excited, they come in and look through the eyepiece, and especially when you have people who've never looked through a big telescope, first time they see a spiral galaxy or they see details on Jupiter or they see the rings of Saturn, and then it tell them Saturn has rings and it rains diamonds, and it just blows their mind. And the excitement is infectious. The next person gets excited, the next person gets excited. I put up the Sea Stars 50. They'd come in, they'd crowd around, they look at the photo a few hours, ooh, nice, and then that's it. The excitement dies down. It's just not the same. Anyway, thanks for listening to me rant. I know that this video might not necessarily have been educational, but I hope to hear your ideas and opinions about this, and please comment below. I'd like to hear what you have to say about the topic. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you on the next video.